Ndị be anyị ekenekwanụ m unu. Anyị sị ka ọ mara na anyị na mma na-eke, anyị sị ka ọ mara anyị mma na orie, anyị sịkwa ka ọ mara anyị mma na afọ, ka ọ makwara na anyị mma na nkwọ, anyị sị ka nke onye chiri ya zerụkwa. Ebe anyị si were otere ya bụ ozi n'ụbọchị nke taa bụ Eastern News 24. Ya bụ ozi bụ gbasara maka ya bụ ife na-eme na obodo nọ n'ime ya adịnwere ụwa na-azọ n'ala Igbo. Ozi a bụ according to the Biafran activist wetara ya n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa. As he quotes, breaking news. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's life sentence. ISWAP terrorists headed to 20 years imprisonment as U.S. Congress debate on Nigerian genocide. Hear the news in details. All right, Yabozi, according to the different activities with Rayabozi, Niru Akono Bosiketa. Dika Malapun Kungayabi, Fakapaka, allocate to Sayabozi, Makoya Mutanuki Fedio Kempa, Nayabozi, Ajibaka, Niru Ako, Ozab, according to the Allies News. Bundi with Yabozi, Niru Ako, Nikiagia, Riatia, and Tosaya. Over to you, sir.
Really, in the life imprisonment sentence handed to the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, after he was convicted of terrorism by a federal high court in Abuja on Thursday. During the sentencing, Justice James Omotosho held that the prosecution successfully established every allegation brought forward, noting that Kanu offered no credible defense and deliberately refused to challenge the evidence presented. He described the IPOB leader as an international terrorist who pursued his agitation through brutal force and terrorism, causing the bloodshed of innocent citizens. The federal government's prosecutor had requested the death penalty, but the judge stated that he opted for life imprisonment to show mercy. The judge ordered that Kanu be placed in protective custody away from Kuje prison due to his unruly behavior during trial, and banned him from using any electronic devices without supervision from the Office of the National Security Advisor.
Is that why you brought the cameras? Is that why you brought them today? Please. You didn't bring it before, you brought it today? Please. Show me where it says you can try me on a repeat law. Show me. Please. Show me where it says you can try me on a repeat law. I said, show me. Show me. Excuse, show me. Get the microphone from him. No, leave it, leave it. Leave it. I said leave it. It's a court of law. I'm under trial. I'm under trial. I have to speak. What is happening here? What are you doing? Don't push me. I'm very don't touch me. Don't touch me. I'm warning you, don't touch me. I'm warning you, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. I said don't touch me. Mad people. You don't know more. Show me the law. Show me the law. Show me the law. You don't know law. They are remoting you. You are acting rubbish. God will punish you. Now and forever. Let it be on record. Any judgment in this court is rubbish. Ask him where is the law. Master Motosho, where is the law? Where is the law?
Well, Nnamdi Kanu was given a 7-count terrorism charge and sentenced to life imprisonment for counts 1, 4, 5, and 6 of the 7-count charge, while he received 20 years and 5 years on counts 3 and 7, respectively, all to run concurrently. The court described Kanu as unsuitable to remain in the company of sane minds. Meanwhile, outside the court, the lead prosecutor, Awomolo, delivered remarks after Kanu's sentencing, lauding the judge's decision. Speaking to the media, the prosecutor stated that this single decision has brought an end to injustice and oppression faced by people in the eastern states of Nigeria, adding that only now will they be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed. Let's take a look.
The judiciary has salvaged Nigeria from the claws, from the oppression of the proscribed IPOB. The court has also pronounced death sentence on Eastern Security Network, which was the military wing of IPOB. Today, God has brought an end to injustice, oppression, suffered by our brothers and sisters of the eastern states of Nigeria. They will not be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
Well, Aloy Ejimako, the legal counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, has vowed to challenge the life sentence handed down to Kanu. The lawyer, in a strongly worded statement outside the court, declared that the verdict and sentence will not stand, insisting that Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist.
It will not stand. Nobody is going to trample on me. Nobody is going to trample on Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist. He's a man that was pursuing change. To pursue a separate nation of yours is not a crime. So in Nigeria today, if somebody says, don't be silly, you get convicted. Nnamdi Kanu may broadcast, and so what? And you convict him for terrorism for mere words in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What kind of precedent is being laid? So from here, we are heading to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the only court in this country, or the next court in this country, that sits as a jury.
All right, Dr. Abati, reactions have trailed this ruling. I'd love your thoughts before I take the reactions.
Okay, we started with this subject this morning. We also had a session with Maxwell Okpara, one of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers. The first thing is one, there's a lot of emotions involved in this. All kinds of street commentators, getting very emotional. There's a lot of melodrama involved in the matter. But the reality is what the court has done.
Yeah.
The judgment is about 144 pages. Whoever is contesting that, the place to go is the Court of Appeal. The matter is not yet over.
Okay.
So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, no matter what has happened so far, can go to Court of Appeal. And when it gets to the Court of Appeal, my only fear is that the prosecutor may also cross appeal. Because even with the judgment given by Justice James Omotosho, Chief Awomolo SCA was still insisting that the punishment for death penalty, for the punishment for terrorism, treason, and all of that, within the purview of the terrorism law of 2013, as amended, is death sentence. So, so the drama has just begun. But I like the point that Maxwell Okpara made that, look, people should just give peace a chance. Let the process in the court be exhausted. But as I've seen, so many people have suddenly become legal experts, commenting what they don't know about. However, when the matter goes all the way to the Supreme Court, whatever happens, there's still a window. And that window is for the president. President Tinubu recently granted pardon, granted clemency, and all of that. I think whatever happens at the end of the day, that window is still open to the president of Nigeria in the national interest for peace. To then say, okay, this is the outcome, but the Nigerian government would grant this pardon. The pardon can now be commutal of sentence, it can be whatever, as the Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy will decide. Right. So that's what I would recommend. I'm not saying that's what will happen, but let us just allow the process to play out.
I've also heard
and people should not inflame passions.
This is it.
A lot of people say, it will not stand. We will fight. Yeah. No, Maxwell Okpara made the point that, look, whether you are from the east or from wherever, just allow peace to reign.
This is the main point. And your point about, probably the president might find a way to, maybe commute his sentence. You're not the only one that has held this view. I have, heard a bunch of legal experts that have, also expressed that view. I'll take some reactions, Ayo, before I come to you. This person wrote on X characteristics. The recent judgment against Nnamdi Kanu has once again reopened a long-standing debate in Nigeria. Why does the Nigerian state seem to treat terrorism, armed agitation, and violent extremism differently, depending on the region from which they emerge? Terrorism should never be celebrated or defended in any form, and anyone who has participated in violent acts against the Nigerian state or its citizens must face the law. However, the unevenness in the application of justice is becoming too glaring to ignore. Over the years, Nigeria has witnessed situations where the government, according to numerous public reports, entered negotiations with armed groups and even reintegrated some individuals back into society, particularly in the northern region. It is disheartening to observe what appears to many Nigerians as sectional approaches to justice. The common saying, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. does not always seem to play out evenly. We may now be witnessing what can be best described as regional and sectarian justice and injustice. Meanwhile, one of the leaders of the Islamic State West Africa province, Hussaini Ismaila, has been convicted of terrorism offenses and sentenced to 20 years imprisonment by a federal high court in Abuja. Justice Emeka Nwite pronounced the sentence on Tuesday after Ismaila, also known as Mai Tangaran, pleaded guilty to a 4-count terrorism charge brought by the Department of State Services. The prosecution said Ismaila coordinated the 2012 attacks on multiple police facilities in Kano State, in which many were injured following his arrest. In August 2017, the trial suffered delays before the DSS called 5 witnesses. Ismaila changed his plea to guilty after the 5th witness testified. Well, you see this? His 20-year sentence will run concurrently from his 2017 arrest date. The judge also ordered Ismaila must undergo rehabilitation and de-radicalization before being reintegrated into the society. And you see why I was able to juxtapose that tweet with this actual story, because this is the agitation from a lot of people, especially also in the Southeast. And, you know, many people who, you know, rightly feel like this was injustice meted on Nnamdi Kanu.
Absolutely. And all Nigerians, despite irrespective of region, have to have a voice. And all voices must be listened to, must be heard. I say this because earlier on I'd said that, that what a number of people have said in some quarters, including the former minority leader of the Senate, Senator Ainaya Abaribe, is that it seems as if it was like predetermined. It was an action against the region of the Southeast, that it was selective justice in some quarters. And when you hear cases like this terrorist who was convicted, masterminding acts of terrorism, who was given 20 years, you can then understand why people are saying that. I had to call Mr. Okpara to order earlier on during the interview, because I also don't feel that the ethnic narrative is good for national unity and to not further incite violence or aggression in certain parts. What we're trying to push is the spirit of national unity. But in doing so, part of that is to ensure that there's fairness and justice indeed across all levels, across boards, and there mustn't be a perception that people are treated differently based on which region they belong to. Now, names like the situation that happened with Sunday Igboho is coming up again. People are talking about terrorists from the north who are given 5-year sentences, and people who actually perpetrated large-scale acts of terrorism, giving kids gloves. In some parts, we even saw them being, given amnesty. We talk about rehabilitation, de-radicalization, and you ask, why is the same treatment or suggestion or solution not given to what is happening to Nnamdi Kanu and the Southeast? And so these are the questions. I don't agree with giving amnesty and, asking terrorists. I believe that terrorists should face the full wrath of the law across board. That's what I believe, and a number of people have called for that. You don't, and we've seen that it doesn't work in the northeast. And so I believe that this is a very delicate matter. It has a political slant to it. It is very sensitive, and that's why even when we speak on this table, we're careful, because we have to ensure that above all the, yes, there's the legal perspective, there's the political and personal perspective, but there's also the spirit of peace and unity in Nigeria, so that we don't further divide along ethnic lines based on what is seen as selective justice.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 100%. This idea of de-radicalization and reintegration of these terrorists, I believe it should be scrapped. You were going to say...
right, for you to take 2 different cases without really knowing the facts of the case and say, oh, this one, the judgment is too harsh. This one, the judgment is too soft. No, that's not how
whatever
you analyze
circumstances
legal matters.
They are. Whatever circumstances they are.
Every case is determined on the basis of its own facts and evidence.
Correct. Whatever circumstances they are, this is what is brought out to the public. This is the perception that is brought to the public.
But I think also it's important to remember, I know you want to speak, but let's also remember that one of the major things that played a part here was that the judge felt that there was no sign of remorse.
Well, also he didn't didn't present a defense because he chose not to present a defense. So he didn't really have a he didn't have a proper trial.
All the terrorists convicted in the North Shore, was there a sign of remorse from them?
Well, we don't know. It was not
I
time.
don't
Exactly.
think
So, which is why we advocate for the
in terms of perception.
I think the idea of the
perception,
remorse
yes.
doesn't really even affect here, because the reason why he decided to show mercy is because of the global perception of what the death penalty, seems in Nigeria especially. And I'd like to bring up also the topic of, Bishop Ona, who we discussed last week, where he talked about the fact that, terrorism, there is the death sentence for it. How many people have we seen convicted, given the death penalty for these such heinous crimes that have been plaguing our nation for decades? But like you said,
one of the counts is treason.
Yes, right.
So that's why you
No,
have to
I
look
know,
at
I
the
know.
facts of
I'm
each
talking
case
about terrorism.
instead of just general comment.
No, I'm talking about
without studying
terrorism.
individual cases.
Terrorism. One of
He was found guilty on terrorism.
Yes, so that's the point I'm making, actually, terrorism. But anyways, in terms of terrorism, we're going to discuss the matter in detail.
There is
Because
treason
life
in
imprisonment
one
was
of the
20
counts.
years and
All
that
right.
was 5 years.
In any case, we will, like you said, the matter will go on appeal, correct? And this is not the end of the case. So we will follow up as always. Let's now take our story from Washington, D.C., where the U.S. Africa Subcommittee on Thursday opened their public hearing into the review of President Donald Trump's redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. In an emotional moment, Congressman Bill Huzenga, who sits on the Africa Subcommittee, fights back tears over the killings of Christians in Nigeria while referencing his recent exclusive interview on Arise News. He condemned the Tinubu administration, saying they are sitting back and not doing enough. Let's take a look.
I went to school with kids from Nigeria. I've got neighbors who've been missionaries there, who have family there, who have friends there, who know this is going on. Yet we've got not just the mass media, we got people within Congress denying that this is happening, or certainly de-emphasizing it. It ought to be outrageous that it is Christians, moderate Muslims, anyone being terrorized by these radicalized Islamists in Nigeria, and we've got the Tinubu government sitting back and not doing enough. And I recently just was interviewed by Nigerian television, Arise TV, and that was really their question: is the Tinubu government doing enough? And I had to answer, no, they are not. And I do not understand how a delegation can come here to the United States and downplay and come up with all of these other excuses as to why this is allowed to happen. It should be rejected and should be called out for what it is.
Meanwhile, Senior Fellow and Director of the Africa Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Oge Onugbogu, broadened the discussion by speaking about how the narrative of a Christian genocide in Nigeria reduces the country's insecurity to a single story, describing it as an oversimplification of the issue. Let's take a look.
A narrow narrative that reduces Nigeria's security situation to a single story and frames it solely as the persecution of Christians oversimplifies the issue. Religious and ethnic violence is driven more by governance failures and is worsened by hate speech and conspiracy theories rather than being just a singular conflict. Nigeria is facing multiple security crises due to religious extremism, banditry, criminality, resource competition, communal disputes, and separatist agitation. These issues are intertwined with history, poverty, and political contestation. The interplay between religion and politics in Nigeria is deep and complex. Leaders often romanticize the country's unity, but fail to foster it, as we saw in the divisive 2023 elections. As Nigeria approaches another national election in 2027, religion will once again continue to influence candidate selection, voter behavior, and campaign strategies.
All right, I thought that she was, in fact, the hero of the meeting yesterday, because she actually really narrowed down in detail what we are facing in Nigeria, the sort of terrorism, insecurity that we are facing in Nigeria. And she also raised this very, very important point about how this religion will play into politics coming into 2027. That is why it is so important that we address this issue head on, way into the electioneering time. And also, I watched the whole proceeding. I was sleeping in and out. But what got me was this young woman who came out to talk about the fact that 4 of her children, Mrs. Ape, during the Yelwata attack, these are serious, severe issues that need to be tackled and dealt with.
All right, let me take them one at a time. I begin with the video of Bill Hizenga, Congressman Hizenga, who seemed to be shedding tears. Riley Moore at some point, Congressman Riley Moore also said that he's having sleepless nights thinking about this. And I just say I think we should be careful about the tears of some of these people across the Atlantic, because they're also the same people who were hosting President of Syria, al-Sharaa, in the White House just a couple of weeks ago, who's responsible for persecution of Christians in Syria. But suddenly he's a friend of the house. So we need to be careful about the agenda that is currently being perpetuated in the US Congress. However, bringing issues back at home, this is why what Oge said was extremely important, because she emphasized the fact that what we need is to ensure we address, number 1, institutional weakness, number 2, political will. She said that if we can get our institutions here in Nigeria into the right shape, into where they need to be, and if we can summon up the political will, that Nigeria has the capacity to overcome this. Yes, engagement and collaboration is important, but it should be a Nigerian-led solution, and that a foreign-led solution may not bear fruits because, again, there's a lack of understanding of the deep intricacies of what's playing out. Now, as for connecting all of these to election cycles, I think we also have to be very careful about this because rightfully so, we've seen the pattern time and time again. It continues to play out as we're going, especially towards a heated election, a hotly contested election. Everything gets thrown into it, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's religion. Unfortunately, everything becomes permissible. Now, there's a concept that originated in Russia, which is called a color revolution, which I always highlight. Now, color revolution is when we manipulate real issues and challenges within a nation, and then we use them to catapult ourselves into some sort of political movement and ultimately regime change. I'm not saying that's what's at play here, but I'm saying that there are people who take advantage of our weaknesses, of our challenges, of our issues that we have within our own nation and use them for political game to try and achieve regime change. So what is the solution to all of this? The solution is that insecurity should be nipped in the bud, whether it be the girls who have been taken in Niger State, whether it be Niger State is children and teachers. In Kebbi State, it's the girls. Whether it be even those that are underreported, that are not making the headlines, that are living in fear. I'm surrounded, my domestic staff are all from the Middle Belt. I hear the phone calls they receive from home on a daily basis. It's not easy for them. They're constant worry for their relatives. So wherever in Nigeria it is time for leadership to step up. We're seeing ministers being ordered to go to the theater. We've seen the vice president is in the theater as well. But the unfortunate thing is, these are all people who have experience with this kind of thing. Should it be repeating itself when we have people who have experienced this at the helm of power? Shouldn't there have been prevention based on their own experience with these types of challenges?
Right.
So we have to get our house in order.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like you mentioned in Niger State, we have an unconfirmed number of students and staff who have reportedly been abducted at St. Mary's School, a Catholic school in Agwara, local government area of Niger State. Terrorists were said to have arrived at the school between 2 and 3 a.m. last night, and the school is currently determining the actual number of abducted students as authorities continue their assessment. Well, this tragic news comes as terrorists who were caught on live stream abducting 38 churchgoers at Christ Catholic Church in Kwara State are demanding 100 million naira per victim. According to our sister publication, the terrorists are already contacting the families directly. Dr. Bati, can you see what is happening now? We've also just gotten a statement from the Niger State government confirming the kidnapping at the St. Mary school. The secretary to the Niger State government, Abubakar Usman, says that they had asked all boarding schools to temporarily close as a precautionary measure, but St. Mary's reopened without seeking clearance from the state government. He also said that security agencies have now begun an investigation into the incident while urging residents to remain calm. I mean, only yesterday we talked about bring back our Kebbi school girls. 24 of them still in captivity at this point. Now we are hearing school children from the Catholic school in Niger State are abducted with their teachers. And then we're hearing that these terrorists that perpetrated the crime in Kwara State are asking for 100 million naira ransom. Did you see those guys in the church? I mean, what, even if you get 100 million, what are you going to do with it to even start with? I mean, these people are terrorists. Dr. Abati.
Well, I think it's most unfortunate that at a time when there is this concern, international concern, that Nigeria is suffering from, very serious problem of insecurity. And we've seen various dimensions of it at the congressional hearing yesterday in the United States. You had John James, congressman from Michigan, in fact referring to the Nnamdi Kanu case. But there were others who disagreed with the mischaracterization that was involving some of the positions. There was one congressman who was saying that there are jihadists, in fact, in the Tinubu administration. It had to take Jonathan Pratt from the Council of African Affairs to say, no, he doesn't think that there are jihadists inside the government. Then, okay, a man modified his statement and said, okay, the government is not doing enough and all of that. So you get all kinds of perspectives. And then you had Sarah Jacobs saying President Trump has no business interfering in Nigeria. On what basis does he want to interfere with the sovereignty here? But all these problems we have with school abduction, attack on churches, they reinforce some part of the narratives out there. Bishop Anagbe of Catholic Bishop of Makurdi, the Diocese of Makurdi, I don't know whether it is Catholic or not, but it's from the Diocese of Makurdi, gave a very graphic report in this regard. So the residual point is that the Nigerian government still needs to do a lot more to make our schools safe. Yes. They are closing down schools in Kwara. So those children, they will lose the opportunity to go to school. In Niger State, the secretary to the government, or whoever signed that statement, said, we had warned them not to reopen. It was St. Mary that went and reopened the school based on intelligence. So is the gentleman, is he blaming the school and blaming the children? In other words, he's saying that they made themselves available to be abducted. Should any child be abducted at all from any school? So that the reasoning in that press statement wasn't very clear to me. No. Because when you say in Kebbi, we were told that government had intelligence, and yet it happened. In Niger State, we were told that we also got prior intelligence. It didn't happen. It speaks to something about, the ineffectuality of the security system in the country. And I think whether they are girls or children or teachers or ordinary Nigerians, we all must feel safe in this environment. Right. Now, the military is overstretched. You have soldiers, they are the ones in the northeast, they are the ones in the northwest, they are the ones in the middle belt. What we're also seeing is that we don't have enough boots on the ground. We don't have enough personnel to secure this environment.
This is the point.
So, how many soldiers do we have in Nigeria? Roughly 300,000.
I was even hearing 177,000 from Adam Soshomale we heard the other day.
So if it is 177,000, how will 177,000 people
wasn't a lot.
Do police work?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the police, what are they doing? Security is supposed to be, the primary thing for policemen. Yeah. Nobody is talking about the role of the police in this. And then these people, they call it civil defense. They are also part of the security apparatus.
Yes, right.
Maybe, they should be given more training, and they can help to protect as many schools as possible.
This is the main point.
So, because, expecting that the military will do it all the time, And then we at every occasion we praise them. We say they are doing well for the country.
Right.
But we need more men out there to govern ungoverned spaces.
I really love that point that you make, and I think that's the crux of the issue, really. I believe that only recently the military said that they're going to deploy, what was it, 10,000 or 100,000 more recruits, 24,000
to be trained in the next year.
Yes, that's what we should encourage.
No, not just recruitment. Maybe some soldiers who have retired, some policemen who have retired, who still have some energy. They should be recalled to service. This idea that if you have done 35 years, you can go. Some of them are still very strong. Let them go back to work and help Nigeria.
Fantastic. We need more boots on ground. Please bring back our girls. I'm calling on the security forces at this moment. We want our girls back home, and we want those young children in Niger State returned immediately. Now under milestones, we mourn the passing of Olusegun Awolowo, grandson of Nigeria's legendary statesman, Obafemi Awolowo, who died on Thursday at the age of 62. Segun Awolowo carried forward the legacy of his illustrious grandfather, carving his own path in Nigeria's economic development sector. He served as Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council from 2013 to 2022, championing Nigeria's trade expansion across global markets. In July 2021, he was unanimously elected president of the National Trade Promotion Organizations from ECOWAS member states, a testament to his continental influence. The Awolowo family announced his passing with heavy hearts, describing him as a phenomenal husband, father, and grandfather who dedicated his life to Nigeria's service. Segun Awolowo honored his grandfather's memory by serving Nigeria with the same dedication and integrity. Our hearts go out to the Awolowo family at this very trying time. May his soul rest in perfect peace. 62, very young, really, really young. I heard your eulogy on his passing. Thank you very much indeed for that. More on the milestones. We celebrate the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who marks his 65th birthday today, November 21st.
Ebumane Gente, Edaluli Nenkunisiwe na nunum obosi nketa na Eastern News 24. Beba isiwele weturu nyabu nukuosi basta makia bife na emenu. Kefi weliku basta makia bife nda weturu nubosi nketa ni ru akwụkwọ. Kemesia.